Hi, this is Rich and Aquila, and we're here to talk to you about, I got a list,
Yeah,
soul traps. Yeah, soul traps, incubus, succubus, demons, targeted individuals, aliens, ETs, and abductions. Maybe not all of those, we might only get partway through the list or whatever. But yeah, we wanted to talk about this because we get a lot of people coming to us and asking us about, they have issues with this sort of stuff. So we thought we'd share, just a little bit more about it. And let's start with the incubus succubus thing. Want to?
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So now the incubus, that's the male one, right? And succubus is the female.
Yeah. You good.
I got it right?
You got it right.
Yeah, okay. Incubus, bad guy. Succubus, bad girl. Okay. Yeah. Now, have you had many clients that have been attacked by this incubus succubus thing?
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah. What how do you so they tell you, oh yeah, this incubus or succubus has been doing this, that, and the other thing. What are you trying to help them understand about the phenomena when you engage a client like that?
Well, for me, seems the most important part is understanding how they got it in the first place. Because sometimes, and it's a very usual case, people are looking for fun. You're horny in the evening and no one's with you and home, and you're like, just getting out by myself is not that fun. I would like someone to do it for me. And then they've heard stories, so they look up on the internet about succubus and incubus and end up watching how to summon a succubus or how to get an incubus to have to please you at night and stuff like that. So, they're just pure curiosity, being horny and wanting some fun. And they try out a few things, seems like nothing happened. Next night, just uh-oh, okay, well, that's some fun. But then next few years might be hell because they're sucking your energy and just messing you up and you're completely messed up. Other people are looking for, they have agreements with these beings. So it's inviting them into their space or, doing drugs or overdoing ayahuasca and mushrooms and everything else, not watching the limits and overdosing and a bit too much can actually break your energy shields. So a lot of beings can catch you with that stuff. People end up let's say even fantasizing, you just have I would like sex to be this. And you might not share it with anyone else, but in your mind, you just create the story to please yourself, play it out okay, well, who gives a damn? But those beings that you create, they still live. You don't destroy them, you forget about them. And it's the same reason people ask, well, why does my overself or higher self doesn't give a damn about me? Why do they forget me? Why are they not helping me? It's the same way we create those beings and forget about them because it was one-time story. Yay, it was fun. So yeah. All those beings, they continue living on, and your sex stories that you spin with all the things that they did to you or you did with them are still playing out in certain worlds. So it's part of you is still being used, and you can spin thousands of stories, or you watch porn and you have thoughts, well, I wish that was me in there, and you fantasize about it. So it just multiplies on how many variations you create yourself and give off that energy. So there's just tons of ways how that can happen, getting an incubus and succubus into your space and just finding out the origins of how did you get it? And going from there to see if you have any agreements, if you invited those beings into your space, if you created places and wanted something, and where you both have mutual agreements where they want to have fun, you want to have fun, or they want energy and you're willing to give it. And lots of variations, but just finding the origins. So for me, seems the most important part in this one.
Okay, wow. So I could be a figment of my imagination, or I could be some leftovers from a sexual fantasy of my overself.
Yes.
Oh, damn! I knew it. I knew something was wrong with this picture. If I'm wanting to get in contact with my overself and have the overself be me be part with my overself, it's kind of like would our sex fantasies, our self in that fantasy, be off running around saying, I want to get back with daddy, with the self, this self? Is,
You got to understand that. Let's say you create a fantasy. For example, you have a girl or you have a guy, and you're just like gonna have some fun in bed or on a beach or something, like whatever plays out in your fantasy and pleases you. Well, that aspect, you played out for, let's say, 20 minutes, an hour max, and you're done. You let it go. How many years has passed in that fantasy, and how many days have passed in there? That part of you that you have created keeps on living with repetitive scenario of, God damn it, I want to rest. And they're being used by this girl or a guy, and they're just like fucking you like crazy, and you're like, and they're looking for a way out. And that's part of you, like, it's one of the aspects. Like you just might have this horny aspect, and that's fine. And that aspect of you might be horny, but you just keep on creating it until the part of you is like, I'm done. Like, I feel no sexual energy anymore. I have no libido, like no stuff. Like, I'm completely shuts off because they spun it too much, and now it's like they don't have it anymore. They kind of like wasted it, so to speak.
wow.
So, getting those fragments of ourselves back would be a good idea. Not that like we get empty, but overused and like without under control, like you might actually be giving away. And then when we have beings jumping onto us, like Incubus and Succubus, that really messes us up.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, there's a lot of ways this can go. We're talking about entities and demons and space aliens and all that stuff, and being a targeted individual. This can all fit together. The other entities that have a negative agenda, they want your loosh, they want your energy and stuff. They can tune into your sex fantasy and become one of those players in your fantasy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of beings sort of lurking around and just waiting for their chance to get noticed or be invited in your space. It's a lot of people in various scenarios, like we're not being specific. Like, God, please help me. Which God are you talking to, and what kind of help do you want? Or like, I need money. How much? Would 10 cents be enough? Would $1 be enough? How much do you need? Like, people are not happy, and they're like not, being specific with what they want and need. So a lot of times when we are spinning fantasies or asking for something, like I need help, I need guidance, or spirit guys, please help me, you're generalizing. And those generalities can bring a lot of trouble because any entity in your space can like, oh, well, I can be your spirit guide. I can be that Archangel Michael. Oh, you need a sexy girl? Look, here I am. And all of a sudden, they're going to just appear in whatever shape or form that seems inviting to you. And all of a sudden, like, hey, you get something out of it. They will try to appear in your space and kind of get your approval, where you feel comfortable with them. But then once you let them in, it's so easy for them to drain you and mess you up. And just like a lot of those nightmares and dreamscapes where they can really like drain your energy or get you sideways, or kind of like even put this like I don't know, like an overlay where you used to be getting a lot of nightly experiences, like out of body or astral projection or something that would give you like more information, and all of a sudden everything becomes mundane or pure blackness and you don't see anything. Well, a lot of entities will just drop it and like sort of put like fall over your head, so you won't see anything anymore, so to speak.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so the one kind of entity we're talking about is like we imagine, right? We have our fantasies that are just imagination, and we're imagining other beings or entities. That's the one kind. Now, for those kinds, we can get rid of them, or you just do a broadcast, like an intention out here. You're all my peeps. You're all my creation. You are all part of me. And you can put the command dissolve or back to source, and it's coming back to you. Or you can be responsible and say, I'm giving you your freedom. You have the freedom to have an experience, and just go for it. And so they go and they're off being a being, so to speak. Kind of like we are, if there was a higher self that we're a spark of or a fragment of. We're like doo-doo, and like people like us might be going, I want to be back to source. I want to, where is God, my creator being, this source. I've lost contact or connection with source. Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, well, that source is in here. It's always in here. It's in the fractal, a fractal of the other. In the same way we would imagine other beings into existence. There's some consciousness in those things, and they can become all they want to be. And who says they haven't already in, from our past imaginings. The whole grasp of what reality is and the multidimensionality of it is incomprehensible. So there's that. So, but you can fix it or change it up with your imagination the same way. Just decide to be responsible and do something about it in your imagination. So that's one way. The other ones, though, we're talking about are like they're demons or entities of a sexual nature. They're like sexual vampires, and they are in and of themselves, whether you were in this life imagining or dreaming it up or not. And so they can come into your space for one reason or another and fuck with you for a very long time. So what are some of the techniques you use to get rid of incubus and succubus on clients, and what can they use on themselves?
Yeah.
I mean, I got answers to this shit too, but
Sure.
I'm interviewing Osvila this time.
Well, one of the most usual scenarios I see with people I work with when they encounter incubus and succubus is that they quite likely met the person in their life that they know they can't have physically, but oh, what fun it is to spin a sort of romance story for a while. Like you have your mundane life and you might not get some satisfaction. You want some variety in your life, and let's say it's your boss and that you're like in your work, or you went to massages and some girl like please you, and you're like, wow, I really like that. And there it goes, like an innocent fantasy, because you were just like, what if you just spin that what if story that's actually nice and like pleases you in some sort of way, and you get your variety sort of pleased, and like, okay, that's great. And
Yeah,
that's
we're not saying anything's wrong with that, right?
no, like I mean, like a
That's
lot
okay.
of people do it all the time in tons of different scenarios. Like, what if I had a dog, and all of a sudden you dream a little story of having a dog? Like the thought by itself without any action is like fine, like but those stories, like most people just like don't really think about it. So they spin the scenario of having fun and like just fooling around with the boss or something, and then they do it once in a while because it just like, hey, it feels kind of nice, just like a little romance, and like it's great. And then they notice that they start having dreams or something like nightmares, but it's so vivid and so freaking real, where the boss is totally alive and they're all over you and they're like really getting into it, and you wake up and you feel like you have been physically molested. Like, damn, that's too much. That really happened? What the hell? So a lot of clients, have those stories and end up having physical results of literally scars on their bodies, like energy completely exhausted, or like, like they no longer want to do that stuff anymore, physical fluids and everything else, like a lot of things go on there. So what I do with the clients is just like, hey, well, how did it all start again? And, we go like, oh, well, I just spun this fantasy because it was fun. And we go into, creating that. And a lot of entities, let's say, well, I can be your boss. I can be your masseuse. I can be your taxi driver or whatever would please you in that fantasy. And, you create them. So the physical body or the image of that person is what you create, but the beings invited or the beings that will take that image and join your story with you from now on, it's like another thing. So we have to, like parse party we do. That technique works really well. Talk to them like, hey, well, what's from your perspective, what seems to be the problem? You're wearing the auditor's hat and you're talking to them, you're the psychologist, the life coach, and you're just bringing some awareness. Or unlike just trying to have a conversation with them, we're trying to actually deal with the issue and finding out like, well, why are you in my space? Why don't you just leave? And all of a sudden you learn that the sanity finally feels like it has purpose. The purpose is to please you, and you wanted this at that time. Now you don't want it anymore, but it still has the purpose to please you. So it's doing it. And that's my job. Like, you wanted me to please you, I'm here. You wanted to love her, I'm here. And it's all of a sudden, they did it one time and it worked, but now on, it really pisses you off, or it's like, damn, I don't want it anymore. I can't handle it. And learning where we have to let go of them. Like, hey, you did your job, thank you so much, but it's kind of like, I'm done right now, I don't need that anymore. And like, where you give them that sort of like break their contracts, or like looser than their leash, or create the world where they have a purpose and they can do things in their world, but like they're no longer in your space, is a big thing. So again, like, revoking agreements, finding out why they're there, or like what can you do for these entities and stuff, like is a big one. On creating those fantasies too, like where you start and you're like, you had fun. So it's just like, okay, I'm done. I pleased myself. That was great. That was fun. So now, like, as you're laying in bed, just like almost snoozing, you're like, oh yeah, that one, just uncreate it, like sort of like take a little eraser, delete it or whatever, close the door, thank everyone and wish them well, and like, just let them go instead of keeping it like undone, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing you can do in the parts party, like you pick out this part of you or this part of you or this other part involved in the problem. You can do Ho'oponopono, which is that technique. If you Google it, Ho'oponopono, Joe Vitale. He wrote a book, but you can get a lot of information about it off the internet. But basically, it's just got 4 commands. It's, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And that's what you say to the thing. But you say those things in context. Hey, I'm sorry for leading you on, or I'm sorry for cutting off the relationship. Doesn't matter. You decide what it's appropriate to say you're sorry for, but you're saying you're sorry. Please forgive me for whatever that transgression was or that hurt. And say thank you. It's like, thank you for helping me with my fantasy. Thank you for this. Thank you for whatever. And then I love you. And then theoretically, or when it works, they leave. And so that's a very powerful technique. Really look into it to see how well that works in so many different levels and ways. So that's another technique.
Well, like a few more things I will mention is doing that detox. Like for people that might have burned their brains a little bit with overusing something, breaking or shielding off is like inviting anyone. And so they're like bugs and moths flying through the fire and light, like you're just attracting everyone. And they're sticking to you with their own, thoughts and personalities and feelings. And now you start feeling what they feel and it's all crappy and exhausting and like, ugh. So, little detox, cleaning your system and trying to like give yourself a week to work on it. It's not easy, it's not fun, but you got to do it once in a while. And another thing like that comes to my mind, a lot of times with these fantasies you spin or wanting that love, you end up attracting the past life lovers, like they were there for you and they're always there for you, so to speak. If you've had some, let's say, agreements where like together forever, I'm yours, like I want to be with you, or you have certain relationships with those people. And like you might have spent the fantasy where like, hey, you had your own like harem world and something else. Well, yeah, well, those beings know you. So whenever in this world you feel like you want that kind of fun, they're listening, like they're still connected to you. So it's like easy for them to come over in your dream states or visit you, or like just sort of like in the astral shapes appear and then like please you and so to speak. But if you're not ready or like not aware of what's going on, you just feel exhausted, you experience the attacks, you're being touched, you're being molested and everything else, but like who's there? So like addressing some of the people from your past that might be messing with you, or even the bigger thing that happens is like these succubus, incubus, past life lovers that stick to you start pushing away people from you. Like all of a sudden someone else that might want to get close to you and get to know you, like, they will try to be friendly, and all of a sudden, it's like this incubus succubus will put this cloak on you of the different appearance. It's like different, like wearing a different clothing, where you used to be kind and like, hey, I'm open, like, hello, how are you doing? You're all friendly. All of a sudden you're kind of like icky and aggressive, and they're like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you, or they change. So variations with how they perceive you or how people will act around you because of those lovers and what they inflict. Like you just try to be friendly and the neighbor will go nuts on you or something, because those will just like put thoughts in their heads and feelings, and like all of a sudden they're like, they don't know what they're feeling or where it came from, but it's just there, it's there, like it just comes out of your mouth and like, oopsie, what happened? Like too late. But yeah, that happens.
kind of like an entity of some sort possessing your friends or family or
Yeah.
relatives, and they speak through you or speak through them to aggravate you because you're being targeted by them for one reason or another. In this case, it would be jealous or some other reasons to keep other lovers or people out of your space so they can have you, the incubus succubus, have you for themselves.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Wow, it's pretty interesting shit. If you guys, any of you watching this have those kinds of issues and want to dig deeper into it and see what's going on, where they came from, why they're in your space, and what you can do to get rid of it, you know, that's the sort of things Dr. Vila and I do. So you can always check us out.
And another thing, if you've ever experienced those things and have dealt with it or are going through it, you know, feel free to comment about it, share your story. Like there's a lot of people that are going through this, but are like afraid to speak about it because they're going to be considered crazy, or there's no one that really would believe them and all this stuff. So it's like, it's important to acknowledge those issues and find a way to deal with it, or at least, you know, speak about it.
Yeah. Okay, so we had all these other things to talk about, but it's kind of all generally together. Maybe in another video, we can talk about the ETs, you know, interfering and targeting individuals and all that. But and maybe
Yes, that's good for now.
Yeah. And then maybe more on soul traps, the different kinds there are. So if you're interested in those things, you can put a comment below and we'll check it out. And we'll make some more videos about this stuff. But yeah, that's about it on the Incubus Succubus thing. Yeah, I can say so much more.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.